Welcome to Community Matters. This is your host, Becky Steinbruner, and I'm happy to be your host here for the next couple of hours. And Happy New Year. That's what I wanted to say. Happy New Year to you all. This is our first program of the year, the new year, in our new location. We have moved, and you can't see it, but it's a wonderful spot. And I really want to thank Susan Fraser O'Connor, who is here with me, making sure that everything is set up and working well. Thank you, Susan, and for all your hard work.
I will stay here till you.
Okay, thank you. If you could just stay until my first guest comes on to make sure the telephone is working well, yeah. I would appreciate that. Thank you. All right, well, again, welcome to Community Matters, and we have a really excellent program today. I'm honored for the first hour to have Mr. Gary Patton, former Santa Cruz County Supervisor, who established many good things in our county that continues to guide it since 1978 when he was on the board. He saved Lighthouse Field from being a big development. It's still a beautiful place to wander, and monarch butterflies roost there. And he also was instrumental in crafting something called Measure J, which was a voter initiative. And we're going to hear more about that, but it is still guiding our county in terms of where the urban services line is. 15% affordable housing required in new for sale and rental subdivisions. Protecting agricultural land and limiting growth. Because, as he will explain, things were really going crazy back in the 1970s here in Santa Cruz County. And so he was able to work with a group of people and get Measure J passed. That will be our first hour. Our second hour is going to be sort of a palette of people all talking about various aspects of what is coming up before the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors next Tuesday, January 13th, and that I've been talking about here a lot. That is the large-scale battery energy storage systems, or BESS projects. The county supervisors will be looking again at the rules that will allow these large projects, maybe in your neighborhood, and they looked at it November 18th and said they wanted some changes made and would come back in March. But the very next day, the public information officer for the county announced the meeting would be held in January. This is all being pushed by the developer of one of these large projects that's already in permitting process in Watsonville. That's known as the Seahawk Energy Storage Facility on 90 Minto Road off of Green Valley Road in Watsonville. So next Tuesday, the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors will be meeting not in Watsonville. They're going to meet in Scotts Valley. And they're going to be talking about this. So there will be three people coming on in the second hour. The first will be Karell Bjorn, a local activist, talking about how this ordinance really is linked with Measure J. Can Measure J really prevent this battery energy storage project from wiping out 38 acres of productive orchard in Watsonville? And other things. And then we'll have Mr. Phillip Carranco, an internationally known regulatory policy expert, coming in and joining the conversation. He wrote a BESS ordinance and handed it to the county. Did they pay attention? Phil's going to tell us. And then in the last part of the hour, we'll have Miss Nina Adino, who is the founder of a local grassroots activist group, Stop Lithium BESS in Santa Cruz County, who has worked tirelessly with a group of people to really make sure that people know what's going on. Had it not been for their work and public meetings, most people would not know about this project in Watsonville. So that's our game plan, and I really want to thank you all for joining me. I have our first guest on here on the telephone. Let's see if we can bring him in. Hello, Gary, can you hear me? Hello?
This is Gary. Hello, I can hear you, Becky.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so very much for joining us here today, and Happy New Year to you.
Well, Happy New Year to you and to all who may be listening to our talk.
Thank you. I gave you a brief introduction as I was sort of running down the dance card for today's program, but you are quite a legend here in Santa Cruz County for many reasons, many good reasons. So, Gary Patton, thank you for taking time to join us here on Community Matters. Would you introduce yourself, please, to our listeners who may not know who you are?
Well, my name is Gary Patton. I have lived in the city of Santa Cruz since 1971. I came here joining my father's law office as a young attorney, focused on draft resistance, actually, since I was personally a draft resistor. And then about 1972, I think I was hired by a group called the Save Lighthouse Point Association to help the group save Lighthouse Field. And there was a huge development project proposed for Lighthouse Field, which I assume many of your listeners are going to know about. It's about a 37-acre piece of property, and there was going to be on that property, according to a plan approved by both the city and the county, unanimously, the Board of Supervisors, the City Council, they wanted to have a shopping center about the size of, I think it's Rancho Del Mar there in Aptos, and a high-rise hotel similar to the Dream Inn, and a convention center, and 7 acres of blacktop parking, and condominium apartments for the wealthy who wanted to have a beautiful, coastal location and coastal view. And so I did get paid once, but then I became a member, and the Save Lighthouse Appointee Association was very engaged in the community. I wrote an initiative measure that went on the ballot in June of 1974 that took the city's participation, because the city was actually contributing land. It was adopted by the people in June of 74, and so that pulled the plug on the proposed development, and then the Coastal Commission came in shortly thereafter, and it was a brand new Coastal Commission said, you can't do that, that's wrong. And then I was running for office at that time because I had been persuaded to run for the Board of Supervisors. And that's what I'm mostly known for, Becky, is being on the Board of Supervisors.
Yes.
I was elected not in June, but in November of 1974, and took office in January of 1975, and then I served on the board until January of 1995. So
Nice.
I was elected to the board 5 times and served for 20 years.
Wow.
And during that time, of course, was engaged in everything that our local government at the county level was engaged in, including Measure J, which I know is going to be our main focus today.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, since then, because that actually was a long time ago, I think 30 years or so ago, 1995, my math is bad, it could be even more than that. At any rate, I was the general counsel for about a couple of years for the Planning and Conservation League, a statewide environmental group. I've been on the board of the PCL, and so I was up in Sacramento for a couple of years, and then I came down to be able to live at home again during the week, and was the executive director of Landwatch Monterey County, which is still going strong over in Monterey. I was the first executive director, and it's still going strong over in Monterey County with an agenda to protect the environment there and also to promote affordable housing. And then I went and for a while was, can't remember how long it was now, the executive director of the Planning Conservation League, and so moved back to Sacramento for that. Then I came back and was part of an environmental law firm of counsel to Whitwer Parkin, an environmental law firm, and Mr. Parkin is still our leading environmental attorney in town and in the county and in California as far as that goes. And then I started teaching at UCSC in the legal studies program, and retired from that program at the end of the 2023-2024 academic year. And so I am now a retired UCSC instructor, and I am still an attorney on the way to retirement for sure, and a citizen about town paying attention to what's going on. So
Indeed, you are.
I don't know whether that's what you meant by introduce yourself, but that's a fairly complete inventory of my activities.
Thank you. Well, that gives our listeners a very good idea of how you've been involved in different aspects of government and local and state, but also your passion to protect the environment. Now, I would like to talk about Measure J because it's something that is kind of not well known or understood by many people, but still guides much of our county planning policy today. Can you describe Measure J a little bit and how what was happening in Santa Cruz County to cause that to be initiated?
Yes, I can certainly do that. Measure J was a citizen-enacted ordinance, if you will, but it was not an initiative. The Lighthouse Point initiative that I talked about, say Lighthouse Field, that was actually, you had to gather the signatures, and you got enough, and you got it on the ballot, and then people got to vote on it at the next election. In the case of Measure J, it was what is called a referendum. And referendum really has two meanings. One is if your government enacts something you don't like, you have, as a citizen, the ability to try to collect the signatures to put that on the ballot, to have the voters at large review what happened to see whether they really support that. There's another meaning of the word referendum, and that is where a city council or a board of supervisors puts a measure on the ballot itself. So there don't need to be any signatures gathered. And the reason that a board or a city council might do that is that they want to get direction from all of the voters, not just the 3 or the 4 in the case of city council in Santa Cruz, who could vote on this. And they then have a measure, if it's enacted by the people, that can only be changed by the people. And that was really the reason to have the board vote to put this on the ballot. Both reasons were important. It was very, very strong and controversial. And so did the voters of Santa Cruz County really want the policies, which I'll explain, or didn't they? So put it on the ballot, we'll see what the public says. And 2, if the public said what I hope they would say, because I wrote Measure J too, if the public decided to enact Measure J, which of course I hope they would, I wanted it to be the permanent set of policies or the long-standing set of policies. I didn't want the next board of supervisors to say, let's get rid of it.
Yeah. And
so that was what was Measure J in general terms, and if you want to talk about the specifics, I can take you through it.
And help paint a picture of what was happening in terms of development here in Santa Cruz County that alarmed some people to the point that they wanted something like this referendum enacted.
Well, what was happening was we were the fastest growing county in the state of California. We had increase in population. I think it was in the 4% plus range every year. And of course, we had the growing strength and vitality of the Silicon Valley, which had, in about 10 years, essentially paved over the entire Santa Clara Valley as these new high-tech companies came in. And there were pressures to have that happen over in Santa Cruz County. and it had a lot of growth, and it was a lot of pressure on farmlands, a lot of pressure on other sensitive environmental areas, a lot of pressure on development in mountain areas that, there aren't that many people, relatively speaking, in the mountain areas, and you could go up there and nobody might notice what you're doing and develop something up there. And then over time, as those kind of developments accrete, what you end up with is a really loss of natural habitat and productive forest lands as well.
Yeah.
So what was happening was massive growth pressures that were affecting all of the kind of local services that we tend to wish we could take for granted, things like the school teachers. I mean, the school districts couldn't keep up with the growth. That was a big problem. A lot of environmental repair impacts on riparian areas, impacts on the timber areas, and I think most signally, most importantly, certainly in my mind, farmlands.
Yeah.
In other words, we have, if you think about it today, we have the third supervisory district, which I represented, includes most, not all, but most of the city of Santa Cruz, which is, compact geographically, and that's where a lot of people are. And then the entire North Coast and Bonnie Doon area. And those areas have been protected, and largely now they're protected by state parks, by nonprofits, by the federal protection that we've just seen go into effect up there. And the first protection was Measure J, because it was largely the North Coast and the Pajaro Valley, and some areas in the second district, the Aptos, Rio del Mar area, out near the coast, particularly in that district. All of those were under incredible growth pressure, subdivisions, et cetera, and other things, not just residential. And so Measure J came in and said, look, you can't do that. And so not with prime farmland or land that's commercially available for farming, you got to farm it. That's what you do. You don't, put in a new high-tech plant. You don't put in a used car lot or a new car lot or anything else. You just, this is a huge resource, and you use it for what it's good for, which is farming. And so that's what really was going on, is just the effects of massive growth pressures, population growth pressures, and, fish and wildlife resources, mineral and timber resources, agricultural land. The marine habitat was affected, of course, by runoff and so forth, where there's a lot of development, and air and water quality. Those were the issues that were called out in Measure J, and they were big issues. So that's what the Measure J was about, is trying to prevent sprawl, if you want to use that word, which is a good one to describe what was happening, and preserve farmland and protect environmental attributes of the county in all sorts of ways.
Well, thank you. Thank you for getting that done. There must have been some pushback, I imagine, from developers and whatnot. How was the transition done? Who enforced Measure J to make sure that it was indeed being upheld? And that kind of applies to today, Gary.
I will definitely respond to that about how it was implemented when it was adopted in June 1978. But let's go back one step to understand what was happening politically. I was talking sort of just a few minutes ago, a minute or so ago, about the development pressures and the impacts that they were causing, and that absolutely was accurate description, I think. But politically, something was going on. And that was a big factor in Measure J. It when I joined the board, and I was elected, as I said earlier, in November of 1974, and I took office in January of 1975. There was on the board when I got on the board, 3 people who were, you would call them environmentalists. They were very sensitive to protecting agricultural lands and coastal resources and so forth. Dale Dawson, a great supervisor from the Aptos Rio Del Mar area, the 2nd supervisorial district, the one that you cover quite frequently in great detail in your wonderful Bratton Online column. The supervisor from that district was very much concerned about environmental issues. And then there was a guy in the San Lorenzo Valley named Pat Litke, who was also of that kind of political view. And then I was of that political view. Pat Litke, I think it was in April of 1975, shortly after I showed up, he just quit. He got mad. He got mad at something and just decided to quit. Governor Brown, who had been elected the same election I was elected in, this was Governor Brown #1, he appointed a guy by the name of Ed Borowitz, who had been a San Lorenzo Valley high school teacher, and I think maybe he still was when he was appointed. He became a member of the Board of Supervisors. So we had these 3 supervisors who were environmental, but the developers really wanted to put the pedal to the metal and develop Santa Cruz County.
Yeah.
And so politically, the developer element, which usually has access to money and knows how to do things, they decided to recall all 3 of those supervisors I just mentioned. The other couple of supervisors, they already were pro-development people, including Cecil Smith from the Pajaro Valley and Dan Forbes, who ran laundromats, but he was from Live Oak in the 1st District. He was a pro-development kind of guy. Anyway, they started a recall against all 3 of the so-called environmentalist or liberal or progressive, whatever label you wanted to put on that group of supervisors. And this recall was aimed at the 1978 election, June of 78. They dropped the recall against me, I think, because they said they had other reasons, but I think they didn't get the signatures against me. But they did get signatures against Ed Borowitz in the Valley, San Lorenzo Valley, and Phil Baldwin in Live Oak, and up to the summit, because the 1st District goes from the ocean to the mountains, as you probably know. Anyway, that set up this election in June of 1978 as being extremely significant, because that was the election which I, for the first time, was running for re-election. So no real need to recall me, because if they didn't like me, they could vote me out in June or November of 1978. So one of the things that, politically speaking, I've kind of described the policy issues that were the ambition of Measure J. But one of the things, politically speaking, was the board, and Measure J got on the ballot. Remember, I said referenda go on the ballot when the board votes to put them on the ballot. So you need 3 votes out of the 5. And it was a 3-2 decision to put Measure J on the ballot. And one of the thoughts was, well, we really, not only do we need a citizen enacted set of policies to guide future growth based on what's happening to us, but we need the people who really care about these issues to come out and keep these 2 supervisors and me on the board.
Yeah.
And so it really was an effort politically, and as I say, I wrote Measure J, and I got some of the credit or uncredit, depending on your position, for for being kind of the architect of this effort, but this was really making an existential proposition to the county.
Yeah.
And the idea was, look, what do you want to be in the future? When you grow up, guys, what do you want your community, your county community to look like?
Yeah.
Do you want it to look like sort of what it looks like now, and what it looked like in 1978? Or do you want Silicon Valley to come on over and do it? And Measure J passed very handily. However, Ed Borovats was recalled by 50 votes
Wow.
in the San Lorenzo Valley. And Phil Baldwin in the Live Oak Summit area district, Soquel Summit area, he lost by like 150 votes.
Wow.
And so this was a real existential choice. And as you probably know, and people listening here probably know, the city of Santa Cruz has always been sort of a liberal, sometimes called progressive area. There was this great book by Bill Domhoff called The Leftmost City, touting Santa Cruz City as a great progressive leftist, quote unquote, area. At any rate, I was handily reelected. It wasn't even close. I mean,
Nice.
I had solid support as it turned out, but we lost these other two guys. So then it was a 4-1 board. I was the only environmentalist on the board. We had, and this may or may not be familiar to some of your listeners, Marilyn Litico.
Oh, yes.
Was elected. She was elected in the Baptist 2nd District, and Pat Liberty was elected, and so it was a real sort of a privilege to have Measure J there to protect things.
Yes.
But it had to be implemented.
Yeah.
And there were attacks. There were court cases against it, and it was under attack.
Uh-huh.
But the planning department was told, and in fact, let me see if here's the actual language of Measure J from what is now a county ordinance. Within 6 months of the date this chapter becomes effective, which would have been probably maybe early July after the votes were absolutely certified. Within 6 months of the date this chapter becomes effective, the Board of Supervisors shall enact by such ordinance or ordinances as may be required a growth management system to regulate the character, location, amount, and timing of future residential and other development in Santa Cruz County. And among other things, those ordinances had to set up a way of setting an annual growth goal that, not a limit, but a goal that every year would be reviewed. It was to try to get a handle on this 4% plus type growth that Santa Cruz County was experiencing. At any rate, when those ordinances came back, and they were late, they didn't come back from the planning department, and I think what's called the Environmental Council at that time, a local environmental group, actually I think had to sue the county to get the county to. And remember, this county board, 4-1 against the whole idea. Every one of the people who was on the board hated Measure J. They did not like it. But it had been enacted by the people.
Enacted by the people, yes.
Yeah. And so they basically enacted the ordinances that they had to enact, and we went from there. And then, of course, subsequently, the board has shifted its composition over the years, but for a number of years, and I understand there's going to be a real article on her in the Sentinel this coming Sunday, just 2 days from now. Supervisor Rob Lee Levy from the 2nd Baptist District, and she was a very strong supporter of Measure J.
Yeah.
And then Joe Kuchera in the San Lorenzo Valley
Yes.
got elected, and he was a wonderful guy supporting Measure J. And so, because Measure J said you got to do it, for people who didn't want to do it and I wanted to do it, we voted to do it. And it's been on the books since, and it's been implemented pretty well. It's certainly preserved farmland.
Yeah.
Not only in my area, the North Coast, but in the Pajaro Valley. I don't think the Pajaro Valley would still look like it looks if Measure J had not passed and hadn't been implemented.
Yeah. There are some areas of the Pajaro Valley that are seeing that Measure J strength, in my opinion, beginning to weaken. Some is with dense infill development required by the state along Green Valley. And then perhaps most notable is the draft battery energy storage system, or BESS ordinance, that our County Board of Supervisors will be reviewing next Tuesday, that allows these large energy storage projects to be sited in agricultural land. And I really have a concern about that. I don't think that it is allowed by Measure J. It would not seem you could do that.
Now, yes, well, you've identified two pressures on agricultural land out there in the Watsonville, Pajaro Valley area. Let me just dispose of the first one.
Yeah.
Dense development, and of course, this is a big issue in the city of Santa Cruz.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Many people, some of them probably are old like me and voted for me when I was running for the board, really don't think the city has been making good decisions about these massive, tall buildings along the river and otherwise. But Measure J, one of the things that people were concerned about was affordable housing, and there is an affordable housing provision in Measure J that was one of the first in the state to require 15% of all new development in the county has to be affordable and made affordable by permanently affordable. And so there was not an effort to try to regulate through Measure J what happened inside the urban areas. The Measure J said there's an urban area that had to be defined, and then there's outside of the urban area, and that's where the Measure J policies have particular importance. So I don't know exactly what the situation is along Green Valley Road and the other places that may be experiencing the kind of pressure you're talking about. But if they are not prime agricultural lands or lands which are agriculture or are productive economically when used for agriculture, Measure J says that's a different kind of issue. It doesn't support high density development, but it doesn't prevent it. However, the idea that somebody can build something on prime or economically productive agricultural land, Measure J says you can't do that.
Yeah.
And here's the actual language, and it's section 1701030 of the county code, which is again is a codification of Measure J.
Yeah.
And it sets out six basic policies. I have to flip the page to remember the other two. The very first policy is underline, preserve agricultural lands. It shall be the policy of Santa Cruz County that prime agricultural lands and lands which are economically productive when used for agriculture shall be preserved for agricultural use. There is no provision other than Measure J in the state of California that provides such strong protection for agricultural land. And remember that this policy can't be changed unless the vote of the county changes it. So there is an absolute protection if the land is prime agricultural land or productive. And I've of course been reading about this battery facility proposed Minto Lane, I think it is. And
Yes.
I have not looked into the actual what is that property designation, what's the nature of it. But if it is prime agricultural land or economically productive when used for agriculture, and that should mean it is properly designated already by the county, then doing anything on it that is not agricultural is a violation of Measure J. The problem may be, and again, I'm an attorney, I was very active in land use related issues. I'm not over the hill exactly, but I'm certainly over the 80-year-old mark, and so I'm not.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, every day, Vicki, I think about that every day. Yeah, well, congratulations, one more day.
Yeah, you're on the right side of the grass.
Life and activity. But so I haven't gotten involved in the details of this, but I would certainly advise people who are fighting it, and I know that there's a lot of good, strong opposition to this, that they do need to get lawyered up, and take seriously their power and the power of our law to protect agricultural land. The arguments against that facility go far beyond it takes agricultural land, if it does.
Yeah.
But the problem they're going to face, I think, is there may be some state mandate that this proposed battery facility is relying on. And, you know, we ultimately, as we found out, I assume people know how much this has changed since when I was on the board. It used to be that the county, the state's system allowed the county, not just our county, any county, a county really, and cities within their city limits, they had fundamental decision-making capabilities over what happened within their jurisdiction. And considering the diversity of the state, from rice fields in Shasta County to the desert in Imperial County, the idea that there could be a single set of statewide policies enacted in Sacramento that would govern all of the development everywhere in the state, I think the state was wise to say, look, let local officials do things, and they can figure out what's best for their locality and give some general guidelines in the law, but don't try to micromanage things. The state has tried, the development industry has convinced the state legislature to try to micromanage development. And I see it in Santa Cruz, the city, all the time. So it may be there's some state kind of mandates that are being relied upon, but I don't think it's automatic that they prevail over Measure J, because our California Constitution does preserve as a right of the people the power of the initiative. It reserves to the people the initiative power.
Yeah.
And so that kind of an approach might be vulnerable to a legal attack if there are some sort of statewide mandates that seem to support the battery facility, if that is prime agricultural land, which I'm not sure it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, I wish the people who are fighting that well.
Yeah. For those of you that have just joined us, we are honored here today to have Mr. Gary Patton on today talking about Measure J and how it has, by the vote of the people, continued since 1978 to guide policy in saving agricultural land, requiring 15% affordable housing in new developments, setting the urban services line, and controlling growth each year, a growth goal. So it is quite a pleasure to hear, Gary, how this all came to be, and to take comfort that it really is a vote of the people that cannot be changed without a vote of the people. Now, you've mentioned that maybe the state has mandates for battery energy storage projects. Well, they do, but they do not mandate that they are in agricultural lands or really anywhere. This developer has chosen to make deals with the property owners on an apple orchard when the farmer passed away, and is proposing that instead of 38 acres of very productive apple orchard, they've had a consultant say, oh, it's not very good soil. It's not very good soil. So your reference to productive and economic viability, how strong is that language in defensibility for saving the soil? You know, they're claiming it has clay. It is not. I went out and took a soil sample, and it's beautiful, beautiful soil. But these are what the developers' experts are saying. And the county's BESS ordinance would allow them to remove the agricultural soil at a ratio of 1:1, and protect every 1 acre removed from agricultural production with another acre somewhere else. And if they can't find an acre per acre of agricultural land, they can preserve timberland and habitat. It's not the same. And I don't know if you want to weigh in on that. It's
well, I'd love to weigh in on that, but you know, as I say, when I was on the Board of Supervisors, which was for 20 years, and I know you're familiar with this.
Yes.
We met virtually every Tuesday. We did not meet on fifth Tuesdays, but basically every Tuesday of the year, other than Christmas holidays and so forth, we met. And the agenda, which was not available online because online didn't exist, was about 2.5 to 3 inches thick. And I read every page of those agendas every time, and I knew what was going on. And then after 20 years, I've been relieved of duty, and we had my successor was great, and Marty Wormhout, she did a great job. But over the years, I am not reading all these items. So I'm, sort of disturbed to hear that maybe this BESS ordinance that I have read that the county has done it, but it's different about reading the county's doing something and actually, and I think you probably read these agendas frequently. Looking through the actual agenda, the item that relates to that may have been an 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch worth of material, discussing all of the intricacies of it and so forth. And those are the kind of things that, I'm not reading, and so I don't really have a good basis for making pronouncements about whether it's okay or valid and so forth. But I am very sympathetic to the idea that people should not just assume because the county staff or the applicant and their hired gun consultants say something that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And there are fewer active and informed and energetic environmental and other citizen groups than there used to be. Now, when I was on the board, there were a lot of just ordinary people who would get together and just sort of as the anti-battery group has done because of the horrendous damage done by that Moss Landing fire. They are energized. I've been in contact with some of their members from time to time. they're having meetings, they're spending time, they're reading all the studies. Hopefully on this Santa Cruz version of let's have a battery facility here, there is some group, the crusading columnist is great, but there needs to be a group of people who are getting together on a regular basis, and I always say you got to get together every week and figuring out everything and investigating everything and so forth, and then knowing what the options are and having the political stamina, as it were, to take on what is usually a combination, particularly I see this in the city, but I think it's probably true in the county too, of kind of a connection between the development person who wants to do something and the staff that tends to facilitate. That's the impetus of staff is to, they come in, if you're a developer, you come in, you pay multiple tens of thousands of dollars to have your projects evaluated. And the people that are working in the county doing the evaluation end up sort of working for you.
Yes.
They work with you.
Yes.
And you need to have some people on the other side, and then make certain that county supervisor in that district really knows where the people are that are going to vote or not for that person the next time around, what they think. And I would think there's a good reason to believe that there's some ground to contest this, because Measure J doesn't say, we really want to preserve agricultural land, but if there's some development that somebody wants to do, you can just buy some forest land and dedicate it.
Yeah, that's essentially what they're saying.
That doesn't compute with Measure J.
Right.
But as is true in everything, Becky, and again, since I'm a reader of your columns, I know you get this picture. The thing you have to do if you care is you have to get involved at the level of detail. You're probably not going to do that as an individual. You're probably going to need supporters. You need to have a little group of friends and associates. And then you need to take on the power structure. Don't just bend over and say, I guess I went to the meeting. They said you could do it.
Yeah.
Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I can't really make a judgment on this particular one, since if somebody hires me, I do the research. I haven't done the research, but it obviously is not right.
Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't make sense.
I agree. And the danger here, I think, Gary, is that if no one challenges the county on this, it will set a precedent for further weakening Measure J. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think it will weaken Measure J, but what it will do is set a precedent which then will, in fact, politically be used to let the next subsequent proposals rely on the same sort of thinking, and that over time, it's not like it's a formal weakening in Measure J, but if you have a law that's on the books, even a law enacted by the people that says this is a law unless you get the people to repeal it, it's only as good as 3 votes on the Board of Supervisors with respect to any particular project. So, I write a daily blog. You probably know that.
I do. I like it.
And it's called We Live in a Political World. And the point that I keep trying to make is politics has a kind of a, it's kind of a little bit of dirty work kind of thing. I mean, who wants to get involved with politics? Politics sounds kind of bad. And in fact, politics, and this is what I learned in these 20 years, that it was such a great lesson and a great joy to be able to be part of helping ordinary people write the laws for themselves, basically. I mean, we mainly write the laws not by referenda or by initiatives, but by electing people who take the laws, make the laws the way we want them to be. And we need to be politically engaged. If we are not, everything kind of rots down to the roots. And that's pretty strong language, rotting to the roots. I don't think Measure J is rotting to the roots, but its leaves are withering if things like this go ahead and they really are violations of Measure J. So once again, my lesson for 20 years of experience is ordinary people can profoundly change what happens, but they have to get involved. They cannot just expect somebody else is going to do it. They have to be engaged. They have to know the facts. They have to mobilize people. They have to show up at meetings. They have to be willing to fund and file lawsuits if necessary.
Yeah.
And if they do that, they can do anything. They can do anything that's not against the law of gravity and the other physical laws that govern what I call the world of nature. We seem to think nowadays, with global warming is a good example. We can ignore the laws of nature, but somehow these other laws, we can just make whatever laws we want. Well, we can make whatever laws we want. And it's a powerful, positive tool, and it's also a tool that can be used to undermine what we care about.
Yeah. Well said. Well said, Gary. For those who want to read your blog, how do we find you and continue to be inspired as you have just done for us today?
Well, I love it when people read the blog, although my blog frequently says that what I'm doing, and it's normally some reaction to something I just read in the newspaper or heard on the radio, who knows. I do it so I can think through what I think. And so it's sort of, I write it for me, but I make it available. And of course, I love it if anybody reads it. And so here's how you do it. You go on the internet and you type GAPATTON.net. And then that gets you to my blog. And when you get there, there's a little process. If you want to, you can then sign up for a subscription. And supposedly, doesn't seem to be working for me, supposedly you get a notice of every blog. But anybody who really cared should just bookmark that thing, and then they could read it whenever it strikes them. But www.gapatton.net, that's where the blog is.
Excellent. And of course, you're one of the regular contributors to Bratton Online. And thank you for all of that. I want to thank you for joining us today here on Community Matters, talking with us about Measure J and why it's so important that we stand up and fight for it now, especially preserving agricultural land. Is there anything else you'd like to leave with our listeners, Gary? And thank you.
Well, just thank you very much for having me on. I enjoy that. I used to do that all the time. And I think you picked a great topic to highlight, and I thank you for that, just as a citizen. That the idea of alerting the people of Santa Cruz County to something that they have done that is under sort of a erosion, the forces of erosion, and getting them re-engaged with Measure J. I really appreciate the chance to help do that.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for all you do, all your good work. All right. I appreciate
it. Until we meet again.
We'll have you on again. This was really great fun. Yeah. We're off the air now, but I really want to thank you, Gary. Thank you. And I'll keep you posted on this BESS ordinance. The fact that the county said, we don't have to protect those agricultural lands because we have something else we want to do. It just doesn't comport, So
no, I don't think it does either, but it's a matter of some factual stuff which I don't know about, but I agree with you. It sounds wrong to me.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when there are alternative sites in the county that are not on agricultural land. So we'll take a look at it, and I'll keep you posted. Thank you very
Yeah, do
much.
keep me posted.
I shall.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye, Becky.
Bye for now, and Happy
Bye.
New Year to you. Thank you.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. All right, Jeff, are you still there?
Yes, hi.
Hi. Gary needed to go. Do you want to say something? We're off the air, but this is still on the recording that we posted to the website. If you'd like to speak up about Measure J. You opposed Measure J.
Oh, you know that, huh?
It says so
I
on the
had a
screen.
I had a client named E. Wayne Moore Jr., a future member of the Board of Supervisors, very conservative. And we did bring suit against Measure J for many reasons. Although I agree in the long run that Gary is right. We should be able to get what we want. And by vote, people got what they want. Got a little bit of extra. We never fully got, I think, the other half of the equation, which was to actually plan for the growth, which was going to come anyway. And how could we foresee that the state and federal government would push housing on us, which means we can't have agricultural land, but we're pushing upward now, changing our landscape with higher and higher buildings with more and more people in them.
Yeah.
So everything has consequences. But actually, I appreciate Gary. He knows that. We even had a cordial lunch together.
Nice.
I can remember. And I had him on as a guest at one of our Lions weekly meetings where he got to meet a lot of people who did not vote for him. I take issue with what he claims was the city being very, well, say left-wing or progressive. It was only the university got there. Before that, it was a retirement town with people who just want to be left alone. That was my perspective of it. Anyway, it's good that you had him on. He was very good. I couldn't get him on myself, so you accomplished that. And he would probably be glad to know that I'm doing a blog, which led me to being on your program.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll have to have him back, and maybe you can join us then. I saw that you had called, but I really wanted to give him all the time to focus on this critical issue of losing our agricultural land to these battery projects.
Yeah, I picked up that. I was interested to hear your side of that. And by the way, you don't sound like yourself either. I hope you're feeling better.
I am. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to get together on another program. Let's see. I see that we have my next caller is calling in, Karell Bjorn. So, did you want to stay on, Jeff?
That. I'll jump off.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks so much for calling. All right.
I'm on the noon balloon next Monday.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. I'll listen.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, Jeff. That was Jeff Bosshard. He's a host for Freedom Forum on Mondays from 1 to 2 here on Santa Cruz Voice. Let's bring on our next caller. Karell, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Excellent. I can. We've got a couple minutes before we actually go on the air, but what we're saying now is recorded on the little flash drive here that I do post to the website.
Okay.
So I want to just thank you for calling in and spending time with us today talking about your thoughts on the BESS and Measure J and anything else that you want to make sure is put out there.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share just any information that I might have. I did, interestingly, have a follow-up question for Gary, and perhaps you know the answer to this, but I was just curious if there's been any cases that were litigated involving Measure J.
Oh. That's a very good
I'm
question.
assuming no. I'm assuming we probably would have heard about that, but that would be really interesting if we could, find out if there is any kind of precedent out there, and then look to that for
Indeed.
going forward with the battery energy storage facility.
Indeed. He did, sorry, he did mention that. Sorry, I'm going to remove
It's
my
okay.
headphones. Sorry, he did mention that there were some cases initially, but none of them held because it was so strongly worded and well supported by the voters. So I can follow up with that question with him if you like. That's a very good question.
Yeah, if that's possible, because that would be great, because that would be kind of a good starting point for us, for really letting the board know that they don't have, the weight of the law on their side.
Yeah.
So that would be really important. So if you could do that, that's wonderful.
I will be happy to do that. And I just saw the clock, so while we were talking, I clicked on the program, and we are now on the air. And
Okay, great.
I want to thank you. For those of you who are staying on into the second hour, thank you. We had a great conversation with Gary Patton in the first hour talking about Measure J and what was happening in the county and why Measure J is still so important. Now, we're going to pivot a bit, and my first guest is Miss Karell Bjorn, a local activist who has been working tirelessly. She's one of those in the trenches that Gary was talking about. Meeting with people, talking with people, writing letters, testifying before the Board of Supervisors. Here you are, Karell. Thank you for joining us today on Community Matters.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Becky. Yeah, I have a lot of information I can share, and so I'm grateful for this opportunity.
Excellent. Well, I'm honored to have you here because you are a busy, busy lady, and I appreciate your time. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and talk with us a bit about the work that you and others that you're working with are doing regarding this BESS ordinance, and your thoughts for people who want to know more in advance of next Tuesday's Board of Supervisor meeting on the issue.
Okay, sure. I'm a mother of 3, and I live here in Santa Cruz County, and I've lived here for about 18 years. And so I really got involved with this because I was concerned with the health effects from the Moss Landing fire. And when that Moss Landing fire occurred, it was about a year ago, I did some initial testing through the Never Again Moss Landing group and tested just the particles of dust on my outdoor furniture to find out if there were any heavy metals in the outdoor furniture on my patio. Mm-hmm. And there were some heavy metals that were indicated in those samples, and I know a lot of other people in the county did those same sample testing. And from there, that's when I learned about these, at the time, it was 3 proposed sites for Santa Cruz County. And that's when I just started paying attention, and there were some local meetings that popped up. So I started to go to those local meetings when I could, and also just started speaking at the Board of Supervisor meetings when I had the opportunity to do that as well.
And you're very
just
eloquent.
To bring awareness.
Let me just jump in. You are very, very eloquent. I appreciate your comments. Sorry to interrupt, but you're
welcome.
very good at it. Thank you.
Sure, yeah. And I did listen to Gary, your first hour. I thought that was wonderful. It was really wonderful to hear over time how Measure J has developed. And it was really interesting for me since, I've lived here 18 years, but not 48. So it's interesting for me to understand the history behind Measure J. And he mentioned, really we need to get an attorney and take legal action to be able to stop this. And so I just wanted to let everybody know that the group Stop Lithium BESS actually did engage an attorney named Aline Tabor. And Aline drafted a letter that was sent to the Board of Supervisors. The letter is dated November 17th, 2025. And in the letter, it talks a bit about some of the issues that you and Gary were talking about in that first hour. And so specifically, I just wanted to quote a couple of things from this letter. Again, this is a public letter because it's been given to the Board of Supervisors, and it should be in their records. But in the second paragraph, it talks about that the 90 Minto Road project should not be driving or influencing the development of the ordinance.
Yes.
And I think we know that that's a really big issue, that the ordinance wasn't drafted first. We're in the process of drafting the ordinance, and at the same time, New Leaf is going through the application process. And so that's really could be a huge conflict of interest that the developer, New Leaf, is driving this whole process.
Yes.
And then secondly, in the next sentence there, Eileen talks about that it's concerning that the county is holding an incomplete and unapprovable application for a use not currently permitted by the municipal code in anticipation of enacting an ordinance that will lead to the eventual permitting of that project. And when she's talking about that it's not permitted by the municipal code, that's really a direct reference to Measure J.
Yes.
Because Measure J is part of the municipal code, it's part of the government code. And then further in her letter, she has an addendum, and the first topic or the first item there talks about how the county cannot adopt an ordinance in principle or amendments to the general plan without complying with the government code. And here she talks about that the California law does not recognize the concept of an in-principle ordinance adoption as the county is attempting to do here. So I think, on the agenda for Tuesday's meeting, it even says that it's an in concept,
Yes.
which is very confusing.
Yes. I asked the county, what does that mean exactly? And they said, oh, well, we're just kind of adopting it a little bit for now, and it's going to come back to us later after further review. But what it allows is action to move forward by the developer. That's what it allows. So I have a lot of problem with that, too. And the fact that the county is going to do an environmental analysis of these new rules at the same time as doing an environmental analysis of the project. And that just should not be. Do you have any thoughts on that, Karell?
Well, I think what we've all observed, those of us who've been involved in paying attention, is that there's this element of time that really shouldn't be there. This whole process is being rushed.
Yes.
And shortcuts are being taken, and it's all just to save money, for the developer to save money. If the developer can save time, they're saving money. They get to make money and get a return on their investment quicker. And so that's definitely one thing we've noted. And even it was quoted by Jason Hoppin in an article in the Santa Cruz Sentinel. I think it was either December 31st or January 1st. It was a very recent article regarding this battery energy storage ordinance. And at the end of that article, Jason says that he's hoping that this will be okay with the timing of the vote. He's hoping it will be okay with the developer New Leaf. So they're actually telling us, kind of in plain English, that time is critical for them, and the county is complying with the developer's timeline, which is egregious, honestly. I think that's outrageous.
I agree with you, Karell. And if people want to go back and see an example of this, on November 18th of last year, the Board of Supervisors first considered this draft BESS, Battery Energy Storage System ordinance. And toward the end, what was shocking to me, Karell, was to see the brand new CAO, Nicole Coburn, ask Mr. Swift, the developer, to come up and give guidance to the staff for what he wanted them to do. It was, as you say, it was egregious, but that's what's happening. Now, what, in your opinion, can people do to band together and really speak up against all of this? What can we do?
Well, there's a couple of things everybody can do. One, you can show up at the next Board of Supervisor meeting, which will be Tuesday, January 13th at 9 a.m. It will be in Scotts Valley at 1 Civic Center Drive. And you can make a public comment there. It's limited to 2 minutes. And you have to be a little bit careful about the rules regarding public comment. Since it is an agenda item, you'll probably only be allowed to make your public comment after the presentation occurs and not before during the general public comments. The chairman of the board, he sometimes gets a little bit picky, sometimes not. It's interesting. I guess it just depends on what he feels like. But sometimes he will not let you speak if that agenda item is scheduled for later on. And then secondly, people can, if you can't make the meeting, you can also submit your comments via the public portal. So you can go to the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisor website and find that online portal to be able to submit your comment that way. So those are two ways for people to get involved and have their voice heard.
Thank you. And what people can do if you want to see what is in these rules that they're proposing, you can go to the Santa Cruz County BESS Ordinance website. And off over on the left, they've got all these buttons you can click to read about the updated ordinance, different things. And then, as you've said, Karell, if you scroll all the way down, you can link into the January 13th Board of Supervisor agenda. And you can also click Make a Comment. And the thing you have to know about making that comment, it's kind of a multi-step process. You have to click on the little orange conversation bubble off on the right by the January 13th link to the meeting, and then that takes you to the agenda. Then you click on the plus little circle for the item, and this is item 9. It is unfortunately going to be the last thing on the agenda. It started off being the first thing on the agenda, but other things have been piled on in front of it, such as the annual report detailing the 2025 Future of Public Health Initiative Work Plan progress. Now, you know that's going to take some time. And it's unfortunate that they did that because that's a staff report, and I'm sure there are members of the public that are interested too. But this draft BESS ordinance is number 9. It is one of 2 items on the regular agenda. And Karell, as you have said, the chairman of the board is a little bit picky. So if you want to talk about this under new rules, not made clear in the agenda, but new rules recently enacted by the board, you can only talk about it when that item is up. So you have to wait around or submit written comment, and that's a good thing. But know that it takes 24 hours from the time you submit your comment on that portal until the supervisors see it. So what I recommend is call your supervisor. And that number is 831-454-2200. Call them up and talk with them, and just let them know your thoughts. Karell, do you have any other thoughts you want to leave with our listeners? You're welcome to stay on. Phillip Carranco is the next guest, and I would invite you to stay on and join that conversation. But do you have anything else you'd like to say?
I would just like to encourage, people to submit their comments or show up or call in. Calling in is a great option for the Board of Supervisor meeting on Tuesday. And if for some reason you're just learning about this and you have things scheduled, you don't have it in your calendar for now that you can participate, please just reach out to Becky or maybe one of the following guests and just find out how you can get involved, because there are meetings that are occurring on a weekly or biweekly basis for different activities to get the word out to people, and also other opportunities just to have your voice heard at these public meetings. So this issue is not going to be going away soon. It's going to be continuing, and so we need to keep showing up at the Board of Supervisor meetings and just letting them know our concerns.
Exactly. One of the groups that anyone can join meets every other Monday evening at the Porter Memorial Library in Soquel Village. We met this past Monday, so we'll probably wait a couple of weeks before we meet again. But those meetings start at 6:30 at the Porter Memorial Library. And that group is called Ban Lithium BESS in Santa Cruz County. There's another group called Stop Lithium BESS in Santa Cruz County, and they've got a great website. And my third guest will be Nina Adino, who has been working with a lot of people in that arena. Okay, Karell, thank you for your wonderful work. And again, I invite you to stay on while Phil Carranco comes on. All right, very good.
I'll stay on. I'll mute myself.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, that was Karell Bjorn from the group Ban Lithium BESS in Santa Cruz County. A wonderful activist, great public speaker. And now we have another fabulous local activist here and an internationally known regulatory policy writer, Mr. Phillip Carranco. Phil, can you hear me?
Hi, Becky. I can hear you.
Hi. Thank you so much for taking time to call today. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and then jump right in and tell us what your thoughts are on this Santa Cruz County BESS Ordinance and what we can do, what we really need to do.
Sure. And again, thank you, Becky, for continuing this effort and keeping the public aware of what's going on in our local area. My name is Phillip Carranco. I'm a native from Watsonville. I am a global regulatory compliance expert dealing with regulations from various products and how they are incorporated in your day-to-day life and ensuring that they are safe for not just the public, but also the community and the environment. So dealing with this issue that we're having right now in Watsonville with Mental Park, again, this is near and dear to my heart because, again, from the area, we have family also in that local area. We just need to make sure proper guidance and information is provided to our local government, and we have been doing that from the very beginning.
Yes.
Starting last year and everything, and actually even providing them with guidance on our concerns as well as guidance on ordinances to put in place to ensure that this development, if it comes for reason, which it probably will, but it's meeting all the regulations and requirements so that the community is safeguarded from different aspects, from environmental impact, financial impacts, basically on all areas that we need to ensure that we are protected. Initially, yes, we've seen that the local board had created an ordinance, and community and everybody felt that it was inadequate, didn't address a lot of the concerns of the community at the time. So they put a little delay in it, and we have a new one that's coming into effect for review and draft. Prior to that, they were provided with an ordinance that had a lot of guidance on some of the issues that we should be paying attention to in that area. And the latest one is still a lot of shortcomings, a lot of gaps that are still there that they're missing. The intent of an ordinance. I think what's happening here and what's going on is it seems like they're focusing a lot possibly on the zoning of the area rather than the use of the area. And that's kind of what's been seen in other counties as well, is not understanding what these particular facilities actually do. What is their intent when they're developed? Yes, zoning is one of the is a critical avenue that we have to take into consideration because you do not want to put a heavy industrial development in a residential area. It doesn't work. that's only one aspect of it. There's a lot more aspects that have to go into place, and I think that's what's happening here. There's a lot of shortcomings in that way where they focus on the zoning. With setbacks, we need setbacks, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we also need to take a look at the safety of the community and what these devices do. We have, the incident that happened last year in Moss Landing has impacted not only California, but every state in the United States that are having these ordinances put in place, BESS facilities going in. Moss Landing is used as an example, because at that time it was the largest BESS facility. So, we didn't want to be put in that type of limelight, but it happened. And how do we come out of that and making sure that we are safe, not just now, but in the future, still is being overlooked by our local governments. And you try to providing them the guidance and information and giving them all the tools necessary to ensure that these facilities, which are coming to our areas, are doing the right thing. There needs to be guidance, absolutely. There needs to be experts that have to provide assessments and take a look at what's going to happen with these facilities coming in place. Those experts, they do cost, and the community and the local government typically has to go out and pay for those experts, but they should be reimbursed because these facilities want that information, want to come here because there's a specific need according to that have to be fulfilling our long-term goal of clean energy within the state. By 2030, we have different areas. And also, there is specific areas that they target because of infrastructure capabilities, like Mental Park has a large substation nearby and the power lines nearby. So there's not a lot of infrastructure changes that need to be made. Something's already there. They have to
It's
improve
cheaper
it.
for them.
So,
It's cheaper for them to build these next to substations.
yes, it's cheaper for them, but then our community needs to get involved, and that's what happened. But also with respect to the zoning, take a look at where it's at. Our environment is completely different than other areas, and even within our own within the own town of Watsonville and other communities, surrounding communities, are different environments. Some are closer to the coastal area, some are further away. We're in a fault zone everywhere in California, and that's one thing that was surprisingly not even in the rewrite of the ordinance is dealing with the seismic as an example. Not putting the proper information in the ordinance can lead to long-term impact to the community. If we take a look at what's happening in other states, New York, constantly catching on fire, that facility, and Warwick in Texas, these facilities are catching on fire. They're not abiding by the ordinances. Then you get into potential litigation issues when you are trying to be stricter after the fact. And that's where it starts getting, you start really trying to figure out what you did right and what you did wrong. And we already know these companies have the financial ability for these hire attorneys to hire and move forward. But we just need to make sure that we put everything in place, to ensure that we are providing the right information. We are making sure things are correct for the community as well as the environment, ensuring that things with zoning, as an example, wasn't skewed incorrectly. It was done the proper way. And the key thing that we have to always, and we've been pushing from day one, transparency. Tell us what you guys are doing. Let us know what's happening. We have a lot of local experts in every aspect. We have environmental experts all around our great city and county that are willing to help, that are probably willing to help out. And we have other experts that can really provide that information to them so that we get, we don't have Moss Landing happening again.
Right.
And that severity. Again, we have to understand with the technology that's there, an incident may happen. We just don't want that large of an incident. You need to ensure that everybody is well aware of what needs to be done. We, as kids growing up, we did earthquake drills because we lived in an earthquake area. We understood that that can happen at any time. We never know what the severity of that earthquake is, but we knew what to do if such a situation happened.
Yeah.
And that's what needs to be done here. And the ordinance that are put in place are to ensure that safety is number one. You know, zoning, yes, I get that, but it's really the ordinance is a regulatory binding standard and requirement for the safety of the people and the facility. And that's the difference is you got to take a look at the facility and what it does and how it can be safely operated, just like any other business.
Yeah.
But these things are just, you know, a little bit more complex, and so to speak.
So you gifted the County of Santa Cruz with a very complete guidance document. Did they incorporate any of your guidance document into this rewrite that they will be considering next Tuesday?
Very limited information was put in there from that. They provided, I would say maybe, I couldn't figure out how limited it did, but they did not highlight a lot of the concerns, concerns, like the seismic aspect of it.
Yes. And the best place, 90 Minto Road, is on the Vergalis Fault. It is on very close to a fault.
There's I was looking into this, and like, so you start understanding where there's actually two fault lines on it that splinter from there. You know, the proximity to a local park. You know, so you know those air monitors are not just to be put at the facility or at the border of the structure, but actually should be also at all the different at places where people congregate. We have sensitive receptors can be at the park, and there's a park there.
So that's one thing people could ask for,
like
right? That's one thing people could ask for, insist on.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's one thing, again, those are all things that would be the requirement of the facility coming in place, not at the cost of the community.
Right.
So that's, water is still going to be a big concern because we do have our area there. That's Kelly Lake, and, could it flood? But, and then, you take a look at the ground and structure. So it's interesting.
Yeah. What stands out to you other than these two things that you've mentioned? There's no, in the new rewritten BESS ordinance for the county, there's no reference to seismic information, testing, siting. There's no reference to location of monitors, air monitors in sensitive receptors. They do say they'll put them at the perimeter of the property, but of the facility. But what good does that do to the people living downwind if there is and when there is a fire, right?
Correct.
Yeah. What else do you see? A couple of other things that people should focus on.
But one surprising, cybersecurity.
Yeah.
What it is the understanding of what that really is and what can be done with respect to a facility such as that. These type of facilities are based on sensors to ensure that heat doesn't go above, so we don't have thermal runaway. We have to have them cooled off. If you impact those sensors or something happens within that controller base, because again, these are all going to be ran by a computer. They're not ran manually, and people are not out there monitoring the temperatures of these facilities. They're all based on computers and sensors. That gets impacted anyway where that temperature rises, we can have a thermal runaway. And then once that, because that's basically what happens. Once it gets too hot, it just goes. That's why they call it a runaway. You can't stop it.
Yeah.
So cybersecurity was one that was surprising wasn't in there, as well as, again, we get penalties when we don't provide information or don't pay bills and don't do certain things. Put in penalties. I mean, they have a little bit, but you make them large. Make the penalties large.
Yeah,
for them
that's what I think
so
too.
that they understand that
What's a dollar amount? That was my issue too. They just say, "Oh, if you don't do this, we're going to fine you." Well, I think they should have some dollar amounts there. What would be a dollar amount that you think people should suggest per day or whatever for
I know
non-compliance?
there were suggestions in there, but typically there have been. I mean, you can go and research that as well to find out what other companies have paid. They're in the tens of thousands at times, depending on the type of violation it is. So it's in something like this, which is really critical to safety. You want the dollar amount to be high, and there's calculations they can use, and we're more than happy to help out there. And I believe they were provided an outline on that in the guidance that they were given, showing a really detailed information of what something like that could look like. And it also, there was really not a lot for where the fire is going to come in place, and how the fire department is going to be impacted, or how they're going to be manned to ensure that this facility is adequate and it has the capabilities of operating in our area and not be a fire hazard.
Yeah.
So.
And thank you very much.
Sure.
Who will enforce this? Do you understand that? Because I quite frankly don't have very much confidence that the county would be a good enforcer when they are really letting New Leaf, the developer, write this. Who's going to enforce anything in it?
So one of the key things coming with the new regulations that came in place with the new bill that have been passed in 2026, the fire marshal has more authority now to really to veto and to put to stops on these facilities being built if they do not meet the proper fire mitigation plans, and the fire department is happy with what's going on and really has more authority even over local government. So they're basically, I guess they would be the gatekeepers. But yeah, it was very shocking to hear that that New Leaf is assisting. Typically, you get some input. You don't get 100% input from manufacturers. You kind of do go out there and they do ask for manufacturer inputs, even in regulations that I deal with on a daily basis. But again, it's input. It's not. I'm going to create it for your best interest. I'm going to make sure that it is fair and it's meeting all your concerns. And if some of the but you can't be lenient on that, because most manufacturers will put in information to benefit their organization.
Yes.
That's their intent, and that's what we have to understand.
And for that reason, I'm very concerned that the developer would be selecting and paying for any environmental review of their project concurrently with this ordinance. That bothers me a lot. And that's we'll hear a bit more about that in our with our next guest. But Philip, do you want to say anything more for our listeners here? What would you like to say?
As the previous caller stated as well, keep your voice. Your voice does matter. If you may think your voice doesn't matter, it does. Reach out to your local politicians you have. Reach out to the fire marshal. Go to the fire marshal meetings that Becky attends. Get more. Let them know the concerns you have, and let them be aware of what authority they have. Sometimes they don't realize they actually have a lot more authority than they really think. It's providing the information, but we just can't let this bypass us and think that we can't do anything. As a community, we can. We do have a voice. We are able to ensure that to give the best for our community. So just continue attending board meetings, provide your comments. 2 minutes is a lot still to put your time. You may think it's not a lot of time, but 2 minutes, you can say a lot in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
If you're given the opportunity and take the opportunity to attend these meetings. And thank you again, Becky, for continuing this effort with our community and on your program. Really appreciate it and what you're doing.
Excellent. Philip, thank you. Thank you for taking time to join us and for all your hard work on this issue, writing that excellent ordinance, and it will make a difference. It will make a difference. So thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I invite you to stay on, if you like, for the next and final guest, and that will be Karell, Karell Reader, calling in. Let me see if I can get her in. Hello, Karell. Can you hear me?
Hi, Becky. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good.
Excellent. Welcome. Well, thank you for calling in. We've got about 20 minutes to 15 minutes here. Please introduce yourself and talk with us about what you think is happening with the BESS Ordinance and what you recommend people do.
Oh, well, thank you. And I want to thank Phillip and Gary and Karell for contributing today. I thought that was really a good combination for a panel. I just wanted to throw in on one subject. I'll introduce myself a little bit first. We live out in Corralitas, and I run and own a organic apple orchard, and have followed this from the very day that the Moss Landing fire happened, because my husband and I were driving that night from Salinas back to our ranch, and we drove by the fire after it had just started, and it was shocking. I think I just sucked the air out of me to see that fire and to find out that night what had happened. So it was then that I learned about our county's intention to have a BESS in Watsonville, and right away I was concerned. And I think I've been following the process. The thing I kind of wanted to focus on today, and this may be something for your next guest too, is I've been corresponding a little bit with our lead planner, Stephanie Hampton. And one of my biggest concerns, and she's been trying, I think, to allay that concern, is that it almost seems from different conversations and different meetings that they're trying to bypass or shortcut the environmental review, the CEQA and the EIR. And on the county's website, you can read through their timeline, and that timeline does indicate there's an environmental review. And I said, oh, well, at least that's good, because we know if the developer went to the state that they would have to do that as well. But it looks like from the different notes in the different meetings that they aren't doing a full CEQA EIR. They are kind of piggybacking this ordinance onto an existing general plan EIR, which means that we won't get as much opportunity for input or as comprehensive an EIR specific to the ordinance. So in the correspondence today, Stephanie said, oh yes, go to the website, you'll see our timeline, there will be an environmental review. But she did not get into detail at what level or how they were going to go about that process. So I think that's my question. Maybe if Nina has more information, and I told Stephanie in my email back that I would ask more questions as we start to learn more. So I don't know, what do you know about that, Becky? Just what have you seen in the different correspondence and meetings?
Well, it's very confusing, as you say, because it is the project at 90 Minto Road that is really driving all of this. And so actions for the project are happening concurrently and driving actions for the ordinance. And I have seen through Public Records Act request information that the developer, New Leaf Energy, Sequoia Energy LLC, they are really driving this and say they have already created an initial study, which is the first step in environmental review, that the lead agency for a project, and in this case the lead agency would be the government, the county, but the developer has already done this. And so the county will look at the environmental review that the developer has done for their project, and of course you think it's going to bring out anything of serious note that needs to be further analyzed, causing a full environmental impact report? I don't think so. So that concerns me a lot too, Karell, that there is too much mixing here, conflict of interest, and our supervisors and staff are being led by the nose by New Leaf in all of this, and that bothers me a lot. What are your thoughts?
I have asked Stephanie, and she kind of bypassed it, that they actually put out a very detailed chart where they show where they are, what dates and times put out on the line, where the different steps are going to be, approximate. We know there's going to be timeline adjustments, but approximate dates and times, target dates at least, and that they show separately the ordinance process and its how it moves forward, and the project, the Minnow Road project, and that they could put it side by side or top to bottom. I know when I was working with the watershed people in Watsonville and the Pajaro River, they did amazing charts that showed exactly what they intended and what things were going to happen at what stages in the process. But I haven't, what's on the county's website is pretty cryptic and not very helpful.
Right, right.
And, it's very hard to tell where the public will actually get opportunities to speak out about their concerns for the environment and their own, local residents' health.
Yeah.
And how that will be done. I mean, they've kind of thrown it out there. There might be a town hall, or there might be a
we haven't seen one yet, have we?
supervisor.
We haven't seen a town hall meeting yet.
Not a full one, not a real one. So, I mean, I think they could do a much better job of communicating.
Yeah.
And I'm almost wondering if it's intentional that they don't want to put themselves in a position where they would have to roll back their comments. One of the biggest questions I asked Stephanie, and again, she kind of bypassed this one too. She said, I asked, well, when was the decision made that there would be only this partial environmental review, that it would be piggybacked onto the existing general plan, EIR?
Yeah.
And that answer did not come up, but that was decided way, at least maybe almost a year ago or before. And who was responsible for that? Who made that decision?
Yes.
She didn't say planning did it. She didn't say the supervisors did it. She didn't say, it just came from the developers. It's a very vague, it's a very critical thing, and they're being very vague about it.
Yeah. And I must say that in meetings that I have been in with other people, members of the public, with the supervisors, we've met with all of the supervisors on this. They seem as in the dark and confused about it as we do. And I think who is driving the bus is our county administrative officer, the keeper of the purse strings. It was her, Nicole Coburn, it was she that went at the November 18th meeting and asked the developer to get up and give guidance to the planning staff for what they needed to do in their timeline. So I think that money is running this a lot, and I think it is actually our CAO who actually sits on the board also of Central Coast Community Energy, and the developer. And Central Coast Community Energy is waiting in the wings, rubbing their hands, waiting for this to get passed because they want this local energy storage facility to help them with their energy requirements that they have to fulfill through the state. So it's a tangled web, isn't it?
Very tangled. And I mean, we've kind of talked with all the players except for the actual project manager from New Leaf. He seems to be working remotely from, I think it's Bend, Oregon. And I have invited him to come down and sit with us and sort of push his PR person aside so that we can actually have the truth the real truth from the developer.
Yeah.
Because as we have seen, their PR person paints such a pretty picture that these things are safe and that there's never any problems with them and we shouldn't have any concerns. And we all know, I have the list now, I pulled it off the web, of like the 30 or so best fires, the grid scale best fires that have occurred across the United States and throughout the world in the last 2 years. So we know they're not safe, and we know that they have toxic fallout when they explode.
Yes.
So it's kind of like it's like don't tell us, lies. We know better. We've seen it now, right up close.
Yeah.
And we can't. Our board of supervisors cannot claim ignorance anymore. We've tried educating. You heard what Phillip actually did out of the generosity of his own heart.
Yeah.
To help educate them and guide them. And I know we've spoken at meetings, and it's like they can't plead ignorance anymore. So now it becomes negligence when they do not perform to a fiduciary standard.
Yeah. And what the listeners need to know is these claims by the developer that, this is not Moss Landing. Well, that's correct. It's not Moss Landing. It's a different battery chemistry. It's the lithium iron phosphate, which still has problems with thermal runaway. It still gives off very high levels of toxic gas when those runaways happen. The firefighters cannot put out the fires. They have to let them burn and use massive amounts of water nonstop for hours, sometimes days, to cool the surrounding containers so they don't catch on fire too. And here we have a project on the shores of College Lake in Watsonville that this developer, New Leaf Energy, thinks is going to be just fine and dandy. Now, you are a wonderful environmentalist, and I know you are watching and paying attention. What are some things you think, Karell, should people really speak up on between now and January 13th Board of Supervisor meeting and afterwards? This is not going to be a short thing.
Right. I would say, it's hard I have trouble when I stand before the board and have 2 minutes to try and make a point, because this is such a complex and interwoven and kind of tangled mess. But I would say if people could focus on one thing alone, or maybe two, make sure that you state that lithium batteries are not acceptable. They just they're the same chemistry that makes them effective makes them explosive.
Yeah.
So just put that as a front page headline. Then as far as an action item, they should speak out and make sure that this process, both the ordinance and the specific project, have complete environmental review.
Yeah.
Because at the very least, if New Leaf bypassed the local ordinance, if they chose, and went to the state would require a project-specific EIR.
Yes.
So if the county short-circuits that in my mind is essentially negligence. They are not even meeting the standard that the state would have.
I agree with you. I think the state is being made the boogeyman that they are not. Yeah.
If I did nothing else, I would demand that they not do this sort of piggybacking of environmental review.
Yeah.
And like I said, Stephanie was kind of vague. She was like, "Oh yes, we've got it in our, in our flow chart, in our nice little timeline." And everything I've seen so far that has been somewhat specific says that it's going to kind of be a abbreviated EIR process.
Yeah.
So those two things, lithium batteries. The main difference between the old batteries that went up at Moss Landing, I dug into the research. I'm kind of a chemical nerd anyway, an electrical nerd. The one big difference about them is that it's a roughly 100 degree difference in the thermal runaway trigger point. So if you had a trigger point of, I'm just going to throw this out there, 600 degrees to start thermal runaway, the new batteries, the lithium, iron, and phosphate batteries, would be 700 degrees.
That's not much.
So that's why they're safer. But let me tell you, in a thermal situation, the difference between a 600, like that 100-degree option in there, the window, it takes 15 seconds.
Yeah, wow.
You get 15 extra seconds to have your, what they call battery management system, kick in.
Karell,
so that's why they're safer.
I don't think so. I just don't think so. You know, we still have Karell Bjorn on the line. I just want to check in with her and see if there's anything she would like to add at this point. Karell?
Yeah. I do want to add something. Thank you, Becky. I'm glad you all mentioned the Central Coast Community Energy, and they perhaps may be influencing this process. I know at the Watsonville meeting that was hosted by Supervisor Hernandez, they were able to speak at that meeting. And I just want people to understand that you are probably automatically enrolled, and when you pay your electrical bill, it actually goes to Central Coast Community Energy. So you may be unknowingly supporting this with your dollars. However, if you want to opt out, you have that availability. It hasn't been well publicized, but you can go to their website and find out how to opt out, and you'll simply just go back to paying PG&E. And there's also a phone number that you can call if you'd like to opt out, and that number is 1-877-455-2223. And I'll repeat that again, 1-877-455-2223. And their year ends September 30th. And I've looked at their financial statements. They have not released their financial statements for 2025. I'm assuming they're still being audited. But you can go to the website and still find their quarterly financial statements that are not audited. But you can look at the statement of revenue and expense, and it's essentially their income statement. And in the 9 months ended June 30th, 2025, they made $72.5 million.
Wow.
And what that tells me is they overcharged all of their customers by $72.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's
and not only that, like they're literally paying people salaries, obviously, but they're doubling up on expenses. So by paying 3C Energy, Central Coast Community Energy, you're paying their salaries, but you could simply just be purchasing your electricity from PG&E just like you've done for years and not have to support these expenses that Central Coast Community Energy is incurring, and you don't have to be supporting where they're influencing policy that might negatively affect you as well.
Excellent. Karell, thank you, Karell. That's
you're
incredibly important. And Karell, Nina has not called in. Can you tell us how we can help support the legal action that she and Stop Lithium BESS are doing?
Yes, I think I can help a little with that while we're waiting for Nina. I hope we get our Nina. You can go to the Stop Lithium BESS Santa Cruz County website, and I believe that they now have a link to a GoFundMe that will go to a fund which is being watched over by one of the other nonprofits that's very environmentally involved. And that fund will be used to assist in paying the legal fees for the attorney that they have engaged.
To protect Measure J and agricultural land. We've got to do that. We've got to do that.
Right. I would say it's critical.
Yeah.
And I think the attorney that they have engaged we should say, she has a pretty darn good track record
Yes.
at holding these governments, whether they're municipalities or counties,
Yeah.
accountable
Yes.
to the public and make them actually follow their own laws
Yeah.
and the state laws and be an answer to the process
Yeah.
and allow people the opportunity to comment and keep the process essentially legal.
Preserve it.
I think what we're
I'm sorry.
concerned about is
I don't want to interrupt you, but our time is done, and the next host has just entered the room, and I've got a button up here. So, Karell Reader, Karell Bjorn, thank you very much for joining us today, and we've got to close it up. And I'll see you Tuesday at the supervisors.
thanks, Becky.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Why don't you keep calling studio open? Jeff's going to be calling it.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, did you park in between the cones? Oh, well, the parking spots with cones in them?
The cones were in the next spot.
Okay, because some guy came like, he's like, oh, that belongs to the blah, blah, blah.
Oh. Oh, that's probably me. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to end this. I'm a little rusty. I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it. It's been 2 weeks since I did.